Okay, let's start with Houston. World Series team. Are you going to boo now or you won't wait till I'm done? He doesn't like the cheats. Houston has fought through a ridiculous siege of injuries. There was at one point in the season, the Houston Astros had 6 of their top 7 starters on the DL. They're all virtually back, not all totally 100%, including Justin Verlander. And there's no Lance McCullers. But Houston, led by Framber Valdez and a bunch of young guys, has got pitching. Alex Bregman was hurt early. Yordan Alvarez, their other big bat, has been hurt, in and out of the lineup. Altuve's been in and out of the lineup. And yet, Houston won their division, and Houston is hosting first-round playoffs. Detroit, they were in trade mode at the deadline. They were so far out of it, biggest disappointment. And they won 15 of their last 20, the Tigers did.
Unbelievable.
They got one pitcher that you would recognize, Tarek Skubal. He's won 18 games this season. They were going to trade him at the deadline. They elected not to. They got hot bats, though. These are not household names. I follow them, so I kind of know that how the seasons have had. Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson, Matt Vierling, and their second and third starters are kids, led by Reese Olson, and they're pitching pretty well. But this is the Houston Astros, who have a world of experience, and this is Detroit, starry-eyed. We're in the playoffs with a really, really young team. So Houston goes against Detroit. Baltimore's been building. They were miserable for 4 or 5 years in a row. Hell, one year, I think they lost 115 games. And Mike Elias did a great job rebuilding that. Virtually their entire roster are their farm system draft picks. Not much in terms of free agency. You got Baltimore coming off 91 wins. Baltimore did go into the marketplace and get Corbin Burns to anchor a very young pitching staff. Baltimore has survived the loss of 3 pitchers this season, including John Means, a former no-hit pitcher who's now had 2 elbow surgeries. They survived that, and they're playing tomorrow. Baltimore's got a great shortstop in Gunnar Henderson. Baltimore's got a whole bunch of complimentary guys that put the ball in play. Baltimore's a pretty good team. Kansas City rented a bunch of free agents. The Royals have a great shortstop in Bobby Witt. Their young first baseman, Vinny Pasquantino, but he broke a thumb. They think he's going to be activated. He might be a DH tomorrow. He's going to try to play after doing all this intensive rehab. But their pitching staff has kind of run out of gas. And that includes Seth Lugo, who at one point I think had won 15 games, the ex-Padre, and absolutely stalled in the final month and a half of the season. All the innings caught up with him. I just don't know that Kansas City can go very far. But again, if Bobby Witt gets hot and some other guys get hot, maybe they hit their way through this. But I got Houston beating Detroit. I got Baltimore beating downtrodden Kansas City. And there's a lot of disappointment a lot of other places. Minnesota was in the hunt. Hell, Minnesota was chasing Cleveland for first place and faded. I think they were 7-18 down the stretch. A lot of rumblings in the Twin Cities that they blew this thing and Rocco Baldelli might get blown out as manager. But that's how I view the American League. And John Riley says,
I like seeing the new logos. I mean, we haven't seen the Royals since Hosmer and those guys won the whole thing. Baltimore, were Baltimore in the playoffs last year?
Yes, they were in and out, one and done real quick. But that's young team building, learning, and now takes the next step.
Yeah, exactly. But it's been forever since Baltimore. And then the Tigers. I mean, so this is kind of cool. And yeah, boo, hiss on the Astros, the cheaters, the trash cans, the whole thing. But they are loaded and they will do well. But if you ask me, I think I want the Tigers to win. Probably the Orioles. Maybe it might be their turn to have some fun.
Okay, so you got Detroit. You're rooting with your heart rather than doing this podcast with your brain.
Well, yes.
Okay. So you spin back to the National League where we started this whole podcast. You got Milwaukee. You got the Padres, home field advantage. You got the upstarts who grinded in the last day of the season to get in. Who do you think is going to come out of the wild card in the American League and the National League?
Well, I mean, first of all, in the National League, I'm rooting for the Padres. We're going to find out who they're going to play. The Brewers, though, are kind of like stealthy. You know, they're the number 3 seed. You could probably name a few guys on that team, but you kind of not a lot of superstars. Kind of like the Mets.
Yeah, for them to do it without Christian Yelich for half the season,
wow, yeah. So I my hunch is that. Okay, the Padres are going to win. And then in the other wild card, I think that other wild card team may get past the Brewers because Atlanta and New York, man, they're streaky. They could do it.
Okay. Now, when we're done, baseball fan is invited to join us on Fans Forum. Swami says I know what's going to show up on the screen. Fans Forum contributors will come back and say, you two big dummies, none of this matters because you got the Yankees and you got the Dodgers and you got the Phillies. And anybody getting out of the wild card round has to go through those places.
Now, see, now you sound like Colin Cowherd.
Thank you.
You know, who's always homing for those big city teams.
Okay, so Fans Forum, you're a baseball fan, rooting for the Padres, got a different opinion about the National League and American League playoffs and the wild card teams that forged their way in? Or is this just a waste of time because you still got to play the Dodgers, the Phillies, or the New York Yankees? Baseball fans, join us in the chat box right now. Fans Forum box is open for business.